MLB likes to pride itself on being a champion for social change and racial justice. Every year, it even celebrates Jackie Robinson Day on April 15th to honor him for breaking baseball's color barrier in 1947. But here's the thing. Like the rest of America, the MLB's got a pretty messy history with racism. Let's take a look at the most racist people in the MLB. Starting with the Baseball Hall of Fame, because it's got some players with, let's say problematic past. We're talking about guys like Cap Anson, who basically started baseball's color line back in the 1880s. And then there's Ty Cobb, Tris Speaker, and Rogers Hornsby. Some folks think these guys might have been in the Ku Klux Klan. Cap was a key figure in starting baseball's color line in the 1880s. He refused to play against teams with black players, and this kept black players out of Major League Baseball until Jackie Robinson in 1947. Then Ty was known for being violent and racist. He had several fights and incidents involving black people and shamelessly held his racist views for all to see. Tris was involved in a gambling scandal, but he also had racist attitudes. Though not as well documented as Ty's, a dude was loud about his racist views. And Rogers was another player who was open about his dislike for players of color. But don't worry, we're not here to call for their removal from the Hall of Fame, at least not yet. Take the Boston Red Sox, for example. In 2018, they asked the city to change the name of Yawkey Way outside Fenway Park. Why? Because Tom Yawkey, the former owner, had a pretty racist legacy. It took him until 1959 to hire a black player. That's like 12 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. And in June 2020, the Minnesota Twins took down a statue of their former owner, Calvin Griffith. Why? Well, because this dude made some seriously racist comments at a Lions Club dinner in 1978. Guess what he said when he thought no reporter was close? "I'll tell you why we came to Minnesota. It was when we found out you only had 15,000 blacks here. Black people don't go to ball games, but they'll fill up a wrestling ring and put up such a chant it'll scare you to death. We came here because you've got good, hard-working white people here." Imagine moving the team all the way to Minnesota because there weren't many black people there. But here's where it gets really interesting. The controversy has now reached two of baseball's biggest awards: the Most Valuable Player, MVP award, and a prestigious award to a baseball writer for having a great career. Both of these are given out by the Baseball Writers Association of America, or BWAA. So what's the beef? Well, these awards are named after two guys with some very sketchy racial histories: Kennesaw Mountain Landis and J.G. Taylor Spink. So Landis was baseball's first commissioner, serving from 1920 to 1944. But this dude wasn't a fan of integrating baseball. He shut down every single attempt to bring black players into the major leagues. With a name like Kennesaw Mountain, you'd think he'd be more open to breaking barriers, not building them. But no. In 1923, when Rube Foster, president of the Negro National League, suggested a series of games between the best Negro League and Major League teams, Landis said hell no, even banned white teams from playing against black teams in exhibition games. And that's not where it ends. In 1943, when civil rights leaders and black newspaper publishers wanted to meet with him about integrating baseball, Landis agreed, but got there and denied there was any ban on black players. If gaslighting were a person. Then about J.G. Taylor Spink. Spink ran the Sporting News from 1914 to 1962. This newspaper was a really big deal back then. They even called it the Bible of baseball. But Spink was all about keeping baseball segregated. In 1942, he wrote an editorial saying that segregation was in everyone's best interest. His argument? Mixing races would lead to riots in the stands. Yeah, seriously. Also, there was Jake Powell. Back in 1938, New York Yankees outfielder Jake Powell was asked during a radio interview what he did in the offseason. Jake said he worked as a cop in Ohio, where he stayed in shape by cracking black people over the head with his nightstick using the N-word. People were shocked. The radio station apologized right away, but word spread fast. Black folks all over the country were furious. It was a big wake-up call for baseball about racism, years before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. But it wasn't all bad news. There were some journalists who were fighting for integration as early as the 1930s. Guys like Haywood Broun, Jimmy Powers, Shirley Povich, and Lester Rodney. They were using their platforms to push for change. And we can't forget about the black newspapers, especially the Pittsburgh Courier and its writer Wendell Smith. These guys were relentless in their fight against baseball's Jim Crow system. Back to Kennesaw Landis and Taylor Spink. In 2020, the BBWAA were asked to do something about the awards named after Landis and Spink. Some former MVP winners like Barry Larkin, Terry Pendleton, and even Mike Schmidt fought for a change of the names on the awards. They pointed out how Landis slowed down progress for black players in the MLB. And even though racism was the norm in early 20th century baseball, that doesn't make it right. Later in 2020, they won. The BBWAA decided to remove Kennesaw Mountain Landis's name from the MVP awards in 2020. The MVP award is now simply referred to as the Most Valuable Player Award, without Landis's name attached to it. And the J.G. Taylor Spink Award has been renamed the BBWAA Career Excellence Award. But why stop there? The BBWAA could create a new award for baseball owners and executives who show a commitment to social responsibility and justice. They could even name it after Bill Veeck. Veeck was a really great guy in baseball history. As an owner, he did so much to break down racial barriers in baseball. Here's a quick rundown. In 1947, as owner of the Cleveland Indians, he signed Larry Doby, the first black player in the American League. By 1948, the Indians had 4 black players, more than any other team. Oh, and they won the World Series that year. He moved spring training from segregated Florida to more open-minded Arizona. In 1959, when White Sox fans booed Al Smith, a black player, Veeck organized an Al Smith night at Comiskey Park. Anyone named Smith got in for free. He pushed for revenue sharing to make baseball more competitive, even though other owners resisted. In 1971, when Curt Flood sued the MLB to challenge the reserve clause, which basically kept players tied to one team, Veeck was one of only 3 baseball figures to testify on Flood's behalf. Veeck had a great quote for his critics. "Tradition is the albatross around the neck of progress. Changing award names, creating new awards, or taking down statues won't erase history, but it shows that we're learning from our mistakes and trying to create a more inclusive future." But baseball's still got a long way to go. MLB's report card showed that none of the 40 people considered majority owners are black. And in the NFL's report card, just 2 people of color were said to have significant ownership interest in any of the league's 32 teams. With only about 6% of major league players being black and no black majority owner, many players say it's tough to speak up about racism because they're worried about getting in trouble. But change is happening. Young players like John Duplantier, Sterling Sharp, and Josh Bell are joining important conversations about racism in baseball, following in the footsteps of Jackie Robinson, whose daughter Sharon has been loud about the need for open dialogue on racism and police brutality. Baseball's made some progress for sure. They let black players in, changed some award names to honor diverse players, and they're trying to get more black folks involved. But Sharon Robinson's right. There's still work to be done to create an environment where all players feel comfortable about speaking up. It's kind of like what's happening in America. Things are changing, but it's taken its sweet time. These conversations and changes in baseball are baby steps, but they matter. So yeah, baseball's not quite there yet with this racist problem, but it's moving in the right direction. And who knows, maybe one day we'll see a whole lot more diversity in the dugouts and the front offices. So tell me what you think. Do you think MLB and the BWAA were right in making these changes, or should they have left things as they were? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you found this video informative, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.